So last time or last class, we went over historical or key events, right, in the development of Middle English. You guys remember? I forgot my pointer again. So key events or key historical events including the Norman Conquest, remember, where William the Conqueror conquered all over England, right, and killing Harold, right, and then he became the King of England. So the consequence of that is all upper class people who held offices in the government, right, or in the court became French, Norman French. So you have French influence in the English language, right? So we talked about other historical events leading to a lot of changes, linguistic changes in the English language also. And we just got started on the spelling or orthographic changes in Middle English, right? And you know that there are many factors leading to that, one of which is French, right? French influence. So you have French scribes trying to impose Norman French conventions of spelling on Old English, right? And then you have dialects also, different dialectal areas in England leading to a lot of variation for the same word to be spelled, right? And there are other key factors. So we just got to that part. So let's go over spelling changes. Let's the details of spelling changes. So from the PowerPoint file from last time, and we also talked about borrowing, right? Domains of borrowing in English and also different levels of borrowing, right, last time. And another factor is the minims, remember? Minims are very confusing, so scribes, Norman scribes just change the way words are spelled, right? So because U has two minims, right? One is here, right? And sometimes the connecting line here is not clear. So people change it to O instead. So S-U-M-E, sum, which is sum, came to be written as sum, like that, right? And come and sun, same thing. Where are we? So now we are here. So one word like might could be spelled in perhaps 8 or 9 ways, right? Now the details of spelling changes. Onto the details. So consonants first, right? Consonants. Old English consonants, you remember this, the thorn, right? And then this is the eth, right? Representing the voiceless and the voice. The eth here soon died out in Middle English, right? So it would take about 100 years or so for this to die out. And then the thorn will become the th, right? The thorn will become the th in Middle English. So the word that, which is like I think that, like that, or that man. So the word that, which is spelled in Old English as a thorn, would become th in Middle English. But in some Middle English texts, you will see the thorn also, because you know we are talking about a period of 200 or 300 years, right? So you see a mixture of two. And then we'll talk about the vowel later. This one, it looks like a P, but it's actually the W sound, remember? The W sound, we call it the wind, replaced by UU, UV, WV, or W. So you might wonder why we have so many letters representing the wind here, right? Because actually, remember the minims, right? So the U and U, W, so there are like 1, 2, 3, 4 minims, like that. So W is just like same thing, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. So whether you write it with 2 U's or 2 V's, same. It turns out the same for minims, right? Or W also, same thing, right? So that's why there's a lot of variation for this win to be spelled. And then there's a problem with the C. In Old English, if you remember, C represents so many sounds, right? One of which is K, right? Especially if it's before a back vowel, right? And then the C in Old English, this is Old English, represents T hook, right? CH, before front vowels, remember, because of palatalization, right? And then there's also SC, which represents the sound, the hook, and CG, which represents the sound J, like that. So every one of these has a C, right? Now, there's a problem because supposedly one letter should represent one sound. So in Middle English, people or scribes change the conventions. In French, C represents an S, as in place. So C here represents an S, right? Not a K or a T hook. So Norman scribes will borrow that convention. So in Middle English now, C at the end of a word, C at the end of a word will represent the S sound, as in place or as in mice and lice. So you have CE instead of an S. So this is a French convention. So that's one change, right? So in Old English, C never represented an S. You see that? But in Middle English, because of the French convention, C at the end of a word representing an S. So we have that in Middle English. Right? And then there are other consequences. C for S, we saw that already, place or knees, which in Old English didn't exist, or which in Old English we use the S, right? And then C for the K before back vowel remained, so that one remained. So CU, Kuman, so to come. So this sound K, the sound K, is represented with a C in Old English, and it stays the same in Middle English, okay? So that stays the same. Now, this one changed in Middle English. C for K before front vowel replaced by K. So in Old English, this is Keppan, right? Keppan pronounced with a K, although it was written with a C. Now in Middle English, they changed the convention to a K. They changed the convention to a K, okay? CN, C before an N, in Old English is KN, right? Meaning the sound is KN, but the written letter CN, right? It's confusing because of the minims, because you have one stroke here, one minims here. So what do you do in Middle English? You change to KN, right? So knicht, so you change it to knick, like that. So for C with a wedge or T hook, you change it to CH according to French convention. And then S wedge, Normans introduced HS. So the only thing that remained the same is the second one, right? The second one, C before back vowels, right? C before back vowels remain. But in other cases, C changed to a K, right? Or CH or SH if they are fricative sounds, okay? So that's one problem, right? The C problem. It's better because now that you have, let's see, S when it's pronounced as CE, CE when it's pronounced as an S, and also you have C, CH, or SH, right? Instead of just a C across the board, right? Now for the G in Old English, you remember we studied, Old English G was written with this symbol, right? It's a yo, remember? Y-O-G-H, yo, and it represents three sounds, right? Three sounds. So that's confusing, right? That's confusing because these are allophones of the same phoneme, right? G as in go, y as in yellow if it's before front vowel, palatalization, remember that? And then the bow tie here, this is fricative, boa, like that, right? So in Middle English, it was written more cursively like number 3 and still called it a yo, and it was used for only the last two sounds, the y and the bow tie only, right? So, and in Middle English, the yo no longer represents the G in Middle English. We just use G, right? In Old English, there's no letter G like this because there's only the yo. So in Middle English, the G is just a G, right? But the yo represents two sounds, the y and the bow tie. Okay. And CG was used for j sound in Old English. In Middle English, it became GG or DGE. So this becomes more like what we have nowadays, right? Bridge or edge becomes what what we have nowadays, right? This is the summary of the changes, the spelling changes that happened. So K, again, K before back vowels, right? The sound K before back vowels remain written with a C, as in Kuman. So you have kum here, which is come later on, and K, CN, the sound still K, right? The CN, you change it to KN, and then CW. This is a Latin convention. You sometimes use QU instead, right? So you have these examples, and then T hook, C at the end of a word, right? C at the end of the word T hook, always represented by CH, right? That's the French convention that we talked about earlier. And then the hook, SC in Old English came to be spelled as SC or SH in Middle English, right? And then you have other symbols. This one is represented by GH, right? And the thorn and the eth, TH in Middle English, right? And W, the wind came to be represented by the W, right? And the V came to be written as U. Right? So these are spelling changes. Now what we'll do is we'll move on to sound changes, right? So we study spelling, and then now we move on to sounds. So today we'll talk about sound changes, including vowels and also consonants. Now, the most important thing is here. There are some sound changes that affect the grammar system. You remember that in Old English, we have a lot of endings, a lot of inflections. Remember, representing nominative, genitive, dative case, accusative case, and so on, right? Now, in Middle English, there is this what we call reduction to schwa. When a word is not stressed, you guys know stress, right? A word will have one primary stress on a particular syllable, right? But in Middle English, in Old English, every syllable was stressed equally, right? So that's fine. Now, in Middle English, for some reason, there's only one primary stress on a particular syllable in a word. So in other syllables that are not stressed, what happened? What happened was that those vowels were reduced to a schwa. Schwa is a mid-central vowel, which is a light vowel, right? So it's very convenient to produce. So every syllable that is not stressed will be reduced to a schwa sound, and sometimes this led to an eventual loss of short vowels in unstressed syllables. So in lexical words, in many types of words. So in lexical words like nouns or verbs or adjective and adverbs. So words like nama, for example. So the stress is on the primary syllable, right? So nama, like that. So the second one is not stressed, right? Nama. So it came to be pronounced with a schwa. And in writing, people use e to represent the schwa sound. So you have nama. So mete, like that, okay? And then in the end, the E here is the spelling, right? But the sound is a schwa, remember? So in the end, the schwa is gone also. So you pronounce it as name, not name, like that. And then nosu to nose, you know why there's an E here? Because su is not stressed, so it became a schwa sound, written or spelled with an E, right? Sunu also, the first U changed to O because of nims. But then the second U became a schwa, so S-O-N-E, sone, right? And then it finally just disappeared. So you have only sun, like that. So again, every syllable that's not stressed will be reduced to a schwa, and sometimes this led to the eventual loss of that schwa sound. But sometimes the E remain, but silent without you pronouncing it. And sometimes the E is gone altogether, just as in the case of sunu, to sun here. Okay? Now in grammar words also, so words that have the dative ending, words that have the E ending as the adverb, words that have the ON ending, past participle or past tense also. So all of these will become a schwa sound, right? Spelled with an E, or sometimes the E will be gone. Just as luphodon, so the ON will become the EN and sometimes it's gone. So this has a huge impact on the grammar system, right? Because now that everything has been reduced to schwa, everything that's not stressed has been reduced to schwa, this means that the grammatical system collapses, right? So in Middle English, you won't have as complex or complicated grammatical system. So all of the noun endings will be just gradually faded away, okay? And then loss, inconsistent, loss of unstressed final consonants in the following vowels, like, sorry, like this one, EN, AN changed to EN because of the unstressed syllable, right? Change to schwa, and then finally everything is gone, right? Affixes like C ending, C is gone, so you have only only like that, so became only. Pronounce ik, so the N consonant is gone, so you have only I, thin, to thigh, and then article an, which is an, right? So now the N is gone, so you have a, like a man, and apple. So that's the origin of the article a and and from the number 1. And strong past participle en often stays, but pronounced with a schwa, written like that. Okay. These are what we call quantitative sound changes, right? Quantitative sound changes. So having to do with the numbers, right? Having to do with the numbers. So loss, meaning that you lost the sound. So from 1 to 0, like that. And then lengthening and shortening, we'll talk about this maybe in 10 minutes from now. Now let's talk about consonants, changes in the consonantal system in Old English. Now in Old English, you have new phonemes. You have new phonemes, voice fricative, the F, the voice TH, right? The V and the Z. Now these, remember, these were allophones in Old English, right? They occur between two voice sounds, between vowels, right? Only, but they were written with an F and an S or a TH, remember? But in terms of pronunciation, they were voiced. Now the situation in OE is like what I just described. So in between two voice sounds, especially two vowel sounds, you have the allophones, the voice allophone, but the spelling is still F or S or either the F or the theta, right? Now in Middle English, they became to be phonemes, full phonemes. So you have a contrastive set between F and V, S and Z, and the voiceless TH and the voice TH. They have become phonemes, okay? Not just allophones in Middle English. And there are a number of factors that promoted the phonemization of voice fricative. One is loanwords from French with the initial Z and V, right? So in French, they already have the V and Z in the beginning. So that's one factor that promoted the phonemization of these voiceless fricative in Old English. Dialect mixing also is another factor. In the South, people usually pronounce the word fox with a V, vision, like that. So that's the South. So that's one factor. And another factor is loss of final E in unstressed syllables. We talked about this before, right? So when you lost the final E, which used to be a schwa, right? When you lost the final E, the sound that used to be like S here is between two voice sound, right? Two vowel sounds. So it should be pronounced as a Z, right? It should be pronounced as Z, as an allophone in Old English. Now when you lost the S here, so that led to the fact that the S which used to be pronounced as a C, became the C in the final position. You understand this? We didn't have the Z in the final position before in Old English, right? Because in Old English, you always have this condition where the C is pronounced when it was flanked by two vowel sounds, right? But when the E is gone in Middle English to this, you have a C in the final position. So that's another factor. And then the last factor is voice consonants require less energy to pronounce. So in grammatical words like preposition or the verb to be or adverbs like that, there, they, them, though, pronouns, and also adverbs. In all these words, the fricatives came to be pronounced as voice fricatives. So these are just the factors that led to the phonemization, right, of voiceless fricatives in Old English. Okay? So this affects the whole consonantal chart, right? In Old English, you didn't have these as the phonemes, right? But in Middle English, these became phonemes. And then change in the distribution of consonants not affecting the phonemic inventory. This is unlike the situation with F, V, and Z, right? Because that situation affected the whole inventory, the whole consonant chart. You add 3 more sounds, right? 3 more separate sounds. But for this one, it doesn't affect the phonemic inventory, meaning you have the same amount of sounds, right? However, you have, let's see, you lost long consonants in Old English represented by the double, M-A-N-N. In Middle English, you don't have the double anymore. In Old English, when there's an H in front of a word, initial H, you pronounce it. But in Middle English, the H before is not, before a cluster is not pronounced. Harafna, H is not pronounced, so you have only Raf, and so on, right? Halafort, you have only Lafort, like that, right? And then the H is gone in writing, from writing also. Let's see, post-vocalic C with a tail or X, still around in terms of sound in Middle English, but spelled with a GH. The G sound, when it's like a bow tie, like that, is usually what we call, what's the process here? Vocalization. Let me spell that for you. Vocalization. So, vocalization. So, the yo that's pronounced like that underwent vocalization. Vocalization, you know, vocal, right? Vocal is vowel. So the consonant became more like a vowel sound, right? The consonant became more like a vowel sound. So it underwent vocalization. Okay, so let's come back to the slide. So especially in this position, near LR or between back vowels, so swelgen, sorg, boga will be vocalized, and then they became W sound. So swelgan, swello, sorg, sorrow, boga, boa. So everything here came to be pronounced with a W, the G in this position. And then the G in the front, in front of a word or in front of a front vowel. In Old English, it was palatalized, remember? Now vocalized to E or spelled with a Y or I. So this is what you know already, right? And then we have sporadic sound changes like loss of W after S or T. Swill, swa became so, like that. Twa, sort, two, sort, like that. So the the W is not pronounced. In other words, the W is not pronounced. So such, so, to, sort. And but in spelling, it remains like that, right? But we don't say to or sword. We say to or sort. So W is not pronounced. And then sometimes you have metathesis of R and vowel. Brit, Trita became bird and third and so on. Okay? Now what we'll do is we'll do practice exercise after okay, so I think this is the end of the consonant. There's one more slide for consonant. So last one is the epenthesis, right? So epenthetic consonants meaning inserted consonants. So some consonants were inserted especially before L, R, and N, presumably for ease of articulation. So Bremel, Namel, Slumbere, you insert a B. So Slumbere became slumber, like that. So Namel became nimble, and so on. So Thuner, which is thunder, so you add a D, like that. And then Elre, you add a D, so elder, like that. So you have the loss, and then the addition of sound, and also some sporadic changes such as metathesis and loss of the W, right? So this is for consonants. So what we'll do now is we'll do a practice exercise on consonant sound changes. And then we'll talk about vowel sound changes after this. I think it's better to do it step by step. So meaning we talk about consonant first, and then we talk about vowel sounds. So now consonants, what happened? So to do a quick summary here. For consonant sound changes, so you have phonemization, right, of V and then theta and a Z, right? So they became phonemes, they became phonemic, right, in Middle English, consonant in Middle English, and also loss of some sounds. For example, H in cluster, W after S, for example, or T, right? And also end at the end of a word, N or M at the end of a word, or even C at the end. And also you have insertion of sounds like B or D, right? Anything else? Vocalization of G. So let me add it here. Vocalization of G. So G became a semi-vowel W, right? Or Y, depending on the position. If it's before a front sound, it will be Y, and then if it's before a back vowel, it will be W. So these are the major consonantal changes in Middle English that you should know, and that everyone studying the history of English language should know. Because if you didn't know this, you wouldn't be able to explain why a word, let's say why an Old English word changed into what we have nowadays. So these are important. These are major consonantal changes, right? Again, these are sound, right? We just talked about spelling. Spelling is one issue. Now it's the issue of sounds, right? And then we'll talk about vowels after we do this practice exercise. Now, let's see. everyone has a copy, right, of the handout today. So let's go over the first page. So the first page talks about the phonymization of F. Phonymization of V, Z, and then the voice TH, right? As you know, there were a lot of factors that led to the phonymization of V, Z, and theta, right? In Middle English. In Old English, these were allophones, but in Middle English, they became phonemes. So there are 4 factors here. One is French loanwords that had voice fricative in initial or final position of a word, like villain. So you borrow them as such. So you borrow the whole word, like villain. So in French, there's already a V or a Z or the voice TH. So you borrow them as such. So you use them like that. So that's one factor, right? That led to the phonymization of these sounds. The second factor is dialect mixture, right? Especially people in the South. People in the South usually pronounce the same word with the voice version, right? So dialect mixture, Southern dialects were voicing initial fricatives as early as Old English. So that's the second factor that led to the phonymization. Third factor, C, voicing of fricatives in lightly stressed common words, especially, for example, is, or of, right? Or there, or them, or thou, like this. So these are function words, right? These are grammatical words. Used to be in the front, usually they were pronounced as voiceless sounds, right? In Old English, but in Middle English, they became voiced, right? One factor, another factor. Now the last factor is loss of final vowels that left voice fricative in a previously voiceless position. So here, reason used to be pronounced with a Z, right? But there's a reason for why it was a Z, right? Because it's between 2 voice sounds, right, in Old English. However, so let me develop this for you. So reason in Old English. Now in Middle English, we talked about the schwa, right? The unstressed syllable. So this is stressed, this is unstressed. So unstressed came to be pronounced as schwa sound, written with an E. So reason, like that. Now the last step is N is gone, right? So the spelling is there, but you don't pronounce the N anymore, and the E you don't pronounce anymore. So in Middle English, this is maybe late Middle English. This is early, M-E. So you pronounce it as rees in late Middle English, right? And then when we study early modern English, Shakespeare English, rees will become rice, okay? There's another sound change in early modern English. So this is a way that we trace the development of a word, right? So from reason to rice. So there's another step there where we pronounce it as, still written the same, but we pronounce it as rice, like that. That's in early modern English, which we'll study next week. Okay? So this is late Middle English. But in any case, you have a Z here, right? As the final sound in late Middle English, rees. This is a position which never was occupied by a Z before, right? Because a Z is in between 2 voice sound only, right? Now, your task is, so these are words that have the voice fricatives. Now your task is to identify which factor, A, B, C, or D, right? A, B, C, or D, according to the environment here. So the last factor, the D factor, that's usually verbs, right? Verbs. Happen to verbs. Or nouns with endings. Nouns with endings like dative, accusative, nominative. Nominative doesn't usually have ending. Dative, accusative, accusative plural, dative plural, like that. In C, the C factor is usually with grammatical words like of, there, then, pronouns, adverbs, like that. The B factor, dialect mixture, that's unique. You notice it when you see them, when you see the word. And then in A factor, these are borrowed words, right? Usually nouns that we borrow from French that we already discussed last time. So slave, for example, slave, which factor should it fall under, right? So C is not for slave, right? The C factor is for usually grammatical words, right? Slave is a noun, right? Slave is a noun. So it's either A, B, or D. But B is not the answer because slave is not an English word. Slave is a French word that we borrow from French. So the answer is A, right? A. We borrow that word from French. So the answer is A in this case. Number 3, vixen. Vixen is a plural form of fox, which is a dialectal word. So the answer is B. Okay? Let me go through like maybe 5 or 6. Number 4, was. Was used to be pronounced with an S, right, or a Z when it's in the infinitive form, wezan, right? So we look at the word wezan, so this is a C. Now, but when it's was, it's just an S. But in Middle English, was came to be pronounced with a Z because of factor CCAT, right? Voicing of fricative in lightly stressed common words, grammatical words. Number 5, of. This is again grammatical word. So the answer is C, right? Number 6, freeze. Freeze, this is in the final position, right? Final position, and freeze is a verb, right? Freeze is a verb. So the answer should be factor D, right? Factor D. A is not because freeze is a English word. So number D. So could you do number 7 to number 20, and I'll walk around and help you. Again, if it's a noun, it's likely A or D dog, right? A or D dog. B is unique. Only in maybe a small set of words, right? 18, I can tell you 18 is number B, vat. Vat from the word fat. In the north and in the Midland area, remember, there are 3 major dialect areas in Middle English: North, Midland, and South. In the South, people pronounce it vat, but in North and Midland, fat. So 18 is B. For other words, there's no dialectal factor anymore. So can you do 7 to 20? If it's a verb, it's likely to be a D factor, because you remember the AN is infinitive ending, right? AN became schwa, and then the N is gone, schwa is gone. So you have the final sound being a C or an F, C or a V or a TH voice. Number 7, pave. Pave, a noun, right? Like pavement, for example. So here we have number A as the answer because we borrowed that from French. Number 8, the word this. What do you think? It's a grammatical word, right? A pronoun or a determiner. So the factor should be number C, right? See. Number 9, the word verse. In the initial position, and it's a noun, we usually credit this to French borrowing, right, which is a. And verse is a term that didn't exist in Anglo-Saxon, so we borrowed it as a whole, right, as a whole package from French. Number 10, seethe, right? So this is a verb, right, from seethan, for example. So we have number D as the answer, right? Because the an is gone and then first en and then the n is gone, the e remains, right? Just like in the case of reason, like that. Number 11, so valley. Valley is a noun, right, that starts with a V, right, which is a voice sound. So we borrow that wholesale from French. So A is the correct answer. Number 12, there. There is an adverb, right? It's there, like that. So adverb would be the grammatical word. So see cat. In Old English, it's pronounced as a voiceless. Right? Number 13, lose. From loosen, right? A verb. So same as number 10 and same as, let's see, same as weave. So the dog is the answer, right? Number 14, carve. Carve is a verb also, right? So you can credit it to factor number D, right? So the adjective, infinitive an is gone, right? Number 15, cease is a verb. So again, number D is the answer. Number 16, clothe. Clothe is a verb, right? To clothe someone, right? So D dog is the answer. Clothe is not a borrowed term, right? So it's an Anglo-Saxon term. From clothan, to clothe someone, to put clothes on someone. Number 17, has. Has is a grammatical word that we already have, right, in Old English. So we didn't borrow that from French, and it's a function word, so C is the correct answer. 18, we already did. Number 19, ease. Ease is a verb, right, to ease your pain, like that. So number D dog is the answer. Number 20, cave. Cave is a noun, right? Cave is a noun that we borrowed from French. So A is the answer. Okay. So these are factors that led to the introduction of voice fricatives in Middle English, right? Okay, the next topic is, so we have time for the next topic. I want to finish vowels today. The next topic on the slide is vowels, but it's very complicated on the slide. So what I'll do is I'll use my notes here and explain it. So this is what you have on the slide also, but kind of a summary of what we have on the slides, and we can go back to the slides on Monday. So we talked about consonants, right? Now we shift our attention to vowels. So changes that happen to the vowel system in Old English from Old English to Middle English, right? So this is my summary. Vowels in stress syllables, right? Vowels in stress syllables, right? You know vowels in unstressed syllables, right? You know that already. So vowels in unstressed syllable will be reduced to schwa, written with an E, right? So we talked about that. Now, vowels in stressed syllables, right? Vowels in stressed syllable, only maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 major changes, right? On the slides, this might look very scattered, right? So I kind of rearranged everything here on this note sheet. The first one is ah sound, short ah, right? Short R changed to O, right? But spelled with O. Spelled with O. As an example, barn. Barn whose, remember, the house of bone, right? Which is body. So barn, R sound, spelled with an A, changed to O, changed to O, spelled with an O. So barn, spelled with an O, like this. So this is an example. So that's one major change that you should know. The second is air. You remember this letter, ash, right? In Old English, we have this as a letter. And also, we have the sound, air, right? Change to R in Middle English, so that changed to that. And then the tone changed to TH also. We studied that already. So that's the second one that you should know. Third one, this is the short one. The long one with the colon here, change to E. Sa, change to se, which is C, right? And spell with E also. So, in other words, we got rid of the spelling here. We got rid of the spelling with an ash here, and we changed to the spelling of R and A, and the sound also. Right? So in Middle English, we no longer use this ash symbol. Right? Finally, you remember the Y symbol? The Y symbol, the sound that you have to round your lips, like this, very difficult to pronounce. And similar to E, right? This E you spread E like that, but this E you round your lip. So people don't round their lips anymore. In Middle English, they just spread their lips, right? So to E like this. Both long and short versions to this. So he done like that would be he done like that. So from Y spelling to I spelling also. So the sound and the spelling more or less match here, okay? Only with this exception. Otherwise, the sound and the spelling match. Finally, diphthongs meaning two vowels, right? Two vowels in Old English came to be simplified to monophthongs. Simplified to monophthongs. What that means is you just pronounce the first sound. The second sound is dropped. The second sound is dropped. So I write this here. Second sound is dropped. So second sound dropped. Right. Air to A. Heaven to heaven, like that. So these are major vowel change, right? These are major vowel changes. Okay, now, so these are like separate vowels, right? And there are two more processes that I will introduce today. One is lengthening. You have this on the slide also. More complicated picture, but this is like a summary version of it. So you have lengthening and shortening, right? These are quantitative, quantitative changes. And the thing that we looked at before, these are qualitative, right? Qualitative changes. Qualitative meaning you change from one vowel to another vowel. So the quality of the vowel is different, right? So you change from one to another. So that's the quality, right? That's the quality. You change from one to a totally different sound. One to another, a different sound. So that's qualitative, right? Now, we look at quantitative. Quantitative, including the amount. Amount meaning the length right? Can it be lengthened or can it be shortened, right? So this is quantitative changes. So you have two cases, lengthening and shortening, right? Very important, this one. This quantitative category is important because or else you cannot explain the development of some sounds. So for lengthening and shortening, right? So for lengthening, when do you lengthen the vowels, right? We are talking about lengthening here, right? In cluster, like LM, MB, and ND, in this kind of cluster, you'll notice that these are all voiced, right? So when a vowel occurs in one of these clusters, right, it will become lengthened, right? It will be lengthened. And also LD. LD also. Why is that? Because, let's see if I can. So the situation is V, right? Before LM, MB, ND, LD will become V lengthened before these sounds, right? LM, MB, ND, LD. Why is that? Because these are voice sounds. So the vowel is usually lengthened, right? Imagine this situation when you have the same vowel mat and mad. So this is mat and mad. Which one is longer? They are both air, right? This is modern English. Mat and mad. Which one is longer? Mad, right? Why? Because this is a voice sound. This is a voiceless sound, right? So it makes sense to lengthen the vowel, right, in this kind of cluster. So as a result, words like CILD in Old English, which is pronounced like chilled in Old English, this is Old English. So in Middle English, this will become chilled, right? So lengthen because it's before the LD, right? So this is simple. Any vowel that's before this kind of scenario, LM, MB, ND, LD, voice cluster, right? Voice consonant cluster will become lengthened. So chilled to shield, like that in Middle English. This is a quantitative change, right? This is a quantitative change, just like this scenario, right? So when you pronounce mad, you pronounce it kind of a little bit a lengthened version of mat, like that. That's one factor, right? That's one factor before a voice cluster. Now, the second factor is open syllable. The second factor is open syllable. If you have an open syllable, you guys know open syllables? Open syllables are syllables that are not closed off by a consonant. So let me give you, this is an open syllable, he. He is an open syllable. But hid is not an open syllable, right? Because this is he, this is hid, right? So it's closed off by a consonant. The other one is, the top one is open. Open meaning you don't have anything following here, so 0, right? So in an open syllable, you can lengthen the vowel, right? This is natural. He, you can lengthen it as long as you like, right? Theoretically speaking. But when you have a closed syllable, you have to pronounce the last sound sometime, right? Hid, so it's closed. You cannot lengthen it as long as you want, as in the first case. So in an open syllable, you tend to lengthen the vowel, right? So not only this scenario, but things like nosu, this is Old English word. When we have a scenario like this, we divide it into 2 syllables, right? No, su. Both syllables are open, right? No, open. Su, also open. So you lengthen this vowel. So no, su, like that. Okay? So when you have this kind of scenario where you have 2 or more syllables, right? You tend to divide them equally, right? So no is 1 syllable, su is 1 syllable. Both syllables are open. No is open. Su is also open. Okay? So you lengthen the no here, right? U is not lengthened because in this case, remember it's an unstressed syllable. Right? So, okay, there are 2 factors. There are 2 scenarios under lengthening. You lengthen it before a voice cluster and you lengthen it before an open syllable. Now the opposite process is shortening. When do people shorten vowels before double consonants, especially voiceless consonants, right? So we already looked at the case of chilled to shield like this, right? Because of LD. Now when you have the word children, this is not lengthened. Chilled to shield, you lengthen the E, okay? Because of the LD cluster. But to children, you don't do that because I lost 1 L, right? Because you have more than LD. You have LD and R, like three consonants in a row. And then let's look at another example. So, kepte. Here, how do you break up the syllable, right? You cannot do it like this because there's no cluster that is like pt as the first sound, right? So you have to do it like this, kepte, right? Now the problem is this is no longer an open syllable. So do you lengthen this or not? You don't, right? So just kepte, right? Short. So in other words, this is more like a double consonant. First syllable of a trisyllabic words. First syllable of a trisyllabic words. For example, let's see. Let me give you an example. Holiday. The word holiday. There are 3 syllables here, right? This syllable will be shortened because there are. If you compare that with the word holy, so holy. You have 2 syllables, right? This is open, this is open. You lengthen ho, right? But for holiday, you don't lengthen this, right? You shorten it. That's why you pronounce them differently. Holiday, holy. Holiday, holy, right? Because in holy, you lengthen it. In holiday, you shorten it. So that's what I want to talk about in terms of vowel changes. I think we are out of time today. So we'll come back on Monday and we'll start with the practice exercises in here, right? In the handout that I distributed today. So please make sure to bring this on Monday and we'll talk about lengthening and shortening again. And also we'll move on to syntax on Monday. And I hope to give you back the midterm test on Monday also.